Okay, everyone, welcome back to another Bible study on the Christian Show. We will be discussing the Gospel of John again. We took a bit of a break last week, but we will be back in the Gospel of John today. Today we'll be discussing John chapter 1, verses 6 through 9, and I will be reading to you out of the New King James Version of the Bible. And let's begin. Starting in verse 6. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. As you can see, we will not be getting through the Gospel of John very fast. It will take probably more than a year to get through, but that is okay. To talk about this, I should probably recap what we talked about last time in the Gospel of John, as it was a while ago. What we talked about in the first video, John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, we looked at how John used the subject of time to convey Jesus' divinity. So, the Gospel of John, unlike the other Gospels, starts at the very beginning of time. It begins with the words, "in the beginning," just as Genesis did. Now, this is something that will be noticeable in the Gospel of John throughout the rest of the book, really. John has significant more focus on Jesus' divinity. The significant time jump of this, starting from all the way back infinitely in the past, it shows how Jesus is all the way back there, and yet he doesn't become a man until 0 AD, basically. Jesus is so much greater than we are. He may be fully human, as we are, but he is also fully divine. He is God as well. Now, what we just read, starting in verse 6, was referring to John the Baptist. Not John the author, John the Baptist. This change in perspective not only shows the difference between Jesus Christ and us, but also Jesus Christ and John the Baptist. Now, Jesus will later describe John as the greatest man to have ever been born. So, if John the Baptist is the greatest of us humans, and Jesus is infinitely greater than John, how much greater is he than us? Think of any single person, think of the person you admire most in the world. That person is still less than John the Baptist, but for a reference, a scale of reference, consider the person who you admire most. And then think how Jesus is infinitely greater than that person. Now, John, being the greatest of us, was called to be Jesus' herald, basically. Now, as Christ's herald, he did a very effective job at that. Look in the book of Acts, how frequently people will have only heard John's message. Apollos, for example, he was spreading John's message. He had never heard of Jesus. But once Paul told him about it, how much greater that ministry became. John did incredible work before Jesus, and did pave the way for Jesus to come. Now, Catholics will generally call Peter the first pope, and to many extents the Protestants will as well. But one could use the same logic and call John the Baptist the first pastor. Now, we continue to see that John the Baptist is specified to. Now, the gospel then goes on to specify that John the Baptist is not the Messiah. This was a common misconception back in the day. If you look just a little bit forward in your gospel, people will ask John the Baptist if he is the Messiah. John will respond, no, he's not. They say, are you the prophet? John says, no. He knows he is the herald of Jesus. He knows that he's preparing the way for one much greater. To further explain this point that I mean, let's turn to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. For one to be truly wise, one must understand God. They must understand that God is significantly greater than we are. One could not be considered wise without first having a worldview, understanding that God is the greatest. Everything is under him. I will return to this point in future episodes. This one is turning out short. But the world really only has two worldviews. These boil down to, do you respect God, or do you respect yourself as God? There are only two. Is God your God, or are you your God? John the Baptist subscribed to the first worldview. Which one will you subscribe to? Are you your God, or is God your God?